Let's go with this. I would ask if everyone would stand, please. We will call this city council meeting to order. At this time, we will have a word of silence. Thank you. I will ask that Councilwoman Sandra Brent would lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. I want to welcome each of you all to the June 23rd, 2025 Georgetown City Council meeting. At this time, we will follow the agenda as written and in order. At this time, Madam Clerk, would you give the roll call, please?
Ms. Wilkins Brent?
Here.
Mr. Chris?
Here.
Ms. Hambrick?
Present.
Mr. Hampton?
Here.
Mr. Minky?
Present.
Mrs. Leslie Mitchell?
Here.
Mrs. Tingle Sams?
Here.
Mr. Stone?
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next are the approval of minutes for June 9th, 2025 special meeting. I will at this time entertain a motion.
Motion.
All right, everybody with one time. It's okay. So, Ms. Sames, I'm going to give to you, as you as best are making the motion, and Ms. Brent, you'll second the motion. Are there further questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Next, item B, June 9th, 2025 regular meeting. At this time, entertain a motion.
Motion.
Again, Ms. Sames,
Second.
second by Mr. Hampton. Do I have any questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Thank you. Next, you should have received the check registry. If you have received it electronically or have in your presence, signify by raising your hands. Thank you. Let the record reflect that all have received. At this time of the agenda, we have public comments. Public comments, you will have 4 minutes. Madam Clerk will time you at 3 minutes into your public comments. She will let you know you will have 1 minute to finish up that thought, and then we will move on. And let's be respectful of everyone at this time that is here. First, we have Mr. Mark Smith, who wants to talk about Senate Bill 63.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay?
Members of council, appreciate y'all. Let me have a couple minutes. If I don't know you, my name is Mark Smith. My wife and I own MLS Power Sports, which is a Georgetown-based business. SB 63 was passed in the Senate, as you know, in the spring. It's essentially about allowing for all-terrain vehicles, specifically utility vehicles, to be driven on public roads. Y'all can read the bill. You're smart. I'm sure you'll figure out the details of that. I just want to make sure you have some information that you may not have about what it is and what it isn't. Initially, it throws people for a loop because there's a fear of, cantankerous behavior or whatever. All the laws are the same as a motorcyclist. They have to be licensed, Kentucky motorcycle, or have to have an operator's permit, like a automotive driver's license. They have to have the same insurance as a car. They have to be inspected, as a motorcycle, have to be inspected by the county sheriff. And all of the safety features have to be in place. They have to have turn signals, brake lights, all the things you would expect, a horn, working seat belts that meet the federal standard. So initially people are a little turned off, but the fear, I think, is unfounded in that they're no different than a motorcycle. Meaning, well, this thing may seem unsafe. Well, it's a whole lot more safe than a motorcycle or a scooter in the event of impact with a car. In terms of the laws that, they have to abide by, the same laws that any operator has to abide by. And the important thing that I want to make sure you know, this is maybe a bigger deal than you might realize. There's 2 national hotbeds for these machines. And that's Southern California, Arizona, and Nevada, and Kentucky, Tennessee, and West Virginia. Huge deal here. We're the biggest Kawasaki dealer in America, and it's not because we're a big deal. It's because of the geography and the location and the riding that's available to folks here. draws folks in from other states. It's it's made it kind of a big deal. So there are a lot of folks very interested in this, and I want to make sure you're aware that Rebecca and the folks at the clerk's office, they have to provide this service regardless of what you do or don't do. So the county residents, starting this coming Friday, can get their inspection and can get certified and get the special license plate to be able to do this. Now, they can't operate in Scott County or Georgetown until the ordinance is accepted, but they probably don't know that. I promise a lot of them don't. The fiscal court's already on it, and I'm not saying they're passing it, but they're working through it. To me, enforcement would, the harder, the questions about enforcement, I'm sure, but maybe the bigger challenge of enforcement would be if the county does it and Georgetown doesn't. I could see that being challenging for folks to know exactly, okay, where do I stop? Where do I turn around? So I'm going to stick around. If you guys have questions as this gets into old business and comes up, I would be happy to answer anything I can. Obviously, we think it's a neat idea, but so we just want to make sure you guys have as much info as you need, and if you have questions, we can answer.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Marsha Wright, and she wants to talk about questioning regarding regulations.
Yes, I've lived in this county for 2.5 years, so I need a little bit of guidance or information. I don't know where to go. I need to know if the county or the city has regulations or laws regarding private property management companies, apartment property management companies that are slumlords.
So are you asking this council to look at that, or me to?
Yeah, I'm in a senior property. There's
Okay.
2 in Georgetown.
Okay,
And both properties are having some major problems as far as health conditions for the seniors and a lot of other.
okay, so you can email me, if you have my email address, is bernie.jenkins at, actually what I'll do, I'll give you my card when we leave
Okay,
here,
that'll
and I'll
work.
give it to you, and if you would, send me an email, and what I'll do is I'll have my staff look into it and hope to give you a response, okay?
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. All right. There is no other. Next will be the mayor's comments. I just have a few comments to make. One, it's hot out there. Just in case you didn't know that. So everybody should be hydrating. I see that Emily's doing that, and Devin, that's good. And the rest of y'all, I did not, so I need to follow my own rules. But anyway, we had 2 events that occurred last week. One was the ribbon cutting ceremony for renaming Ed Davis Park to Boston Park. And again, the reason for that is that it followed along the same footprint as all the other parks, which identified that property or that park as in that community. So they came through the process, and we thought that it was a good idea to follow that same process, to give them that opportunity. They love that idea because it gives some identity for that particular park. So now it's not Ed Davis Playground or Park anymore. It's now called Boston Park. So, and thanks for all those that have had an opportunity to come and do that. Next, we had the old Georgetown Cemetery monument dedication occurred last Wednesday, and it was a stellar event. This was a process which started almost 8 years ago, and they came to me in 2023 to see if we can actually put a monument to actually give some knowledge to people about that graveyard, also the importance of the people that are buried there, and give its due diligence of recognition for that graveyard. So we did that. Rocky Atkins came from the governor's office. We had also with us Jim Sievers from the Kentucky Historical Society. Just to give you some information on that, Old Georgetown Cemetery was the first cemetery here in Georgetown. Matter of fact, almost somewhere right before it was actually put in as an actual city. And then, of course, when it started to outgrow itself, so we did the one off of US 25. But it's also a pioneer cemetery. So we wanted to make sure that let everyone know how the important that graveyard meant to the history of this community. So we did that, and thank you again for those who were able to attend. And it was a stellar event, and I'm appreciative to my staff who helped put this together and everything. So once again, it was a great honor. Next, we want to recognize an individual who has been with the Scott County Library for a dedicated service of years. And Patty has been a stellar. You know, if you want to know anything about what's going on in the library in Georgetown, Patty was your girl to talk to. And so, we want to recognize her service. So we have a proclamation that we're going to read, and then we'll bring her up and give it to her, and then we'll take some pictures with her to illustrate this. So hold your applause, everything, till we finish everything. I know everybody gets excited about this stuff, so let's just hold on and we'll get to that at the end. So, Madam Clerk, if you will read the proclamation.
Proclamation honoring Patty Burnside for a dedicated career of service to the Scott County Public Library. Whereas Patty Burnside is retiring after a 30-year career at the Scott County Public Library, during which she committed herself to enriching the lives of citizens of Georgetown and Scott County. And whereas beginning her work with the Scott County Public Library in August of 1994 as a part-time library clerk, Patty quickly became a valuable full-time employee, moving into the role of Educational Service Coordinator in July of 1995. And whereas while working full-time at the library, Patty took night classes at the University of Kentucky and ultimately earned a master's degree in library science in December 1998. And whereas prior to being named director in November 2017, Patty served in numerous roles at the library, starting as a part-time library clerk at the circulation desk, leading story times and programming for children's department, working with teens, leading the adult services department, serving as assistant director and interim director. Whereas during her 3 decades of service, Patty has helped lead the library through 3 construction projects, including a move from Main Street to the current location in 1999, and major renovation projects in 2014 and 2021. And whereas in her role as director, Patty has collaborated with local government and local business communities to improve the voting process, facilitate public meeting space, foster positive community relationships, and much more. Now therefore, I, Bernie Jenkins, the mayor of the city of Georgetown, Kentucky, do hereby honor and praise Patty Burnside for her dedication, commitment to the Georgetown Scott County community, and wish her the best in this next chapter of life.
Patty, you come on up here and we'll take a picture with you. Come on, lady. Come out 31. I don't want to cheat you out of anything here.
You could tell me where do you want us?
Oh, you get behind me? Side of the don't hide me. I can't say between the lines, so that's So on behalf of the city of Georgetown, so we're gonna give Patty here. Patty.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure every day.
Well, the pleasure was all ours. I mean, 31 years of being around books, I don't know. I don't know if I could do that, but I think you did great with that, so that's wonderful news. So, all right. All right, moving on the agenda. Next on the agenda, we have the council committee, and we have finance.
Thank you, Mayor. Finance Committee held its meeting on June 16, 2025. Everyone was present with the exception of Mayor Jenkins from the Finance Committee, and then as well as we had Devin Golden, Stacy Clark, Tracy Hoffman, and City Councilman Kim Minke. We approved the minutes from the May 19, 2025 minute unanimously. Item 3, we discussed the 25-26 budget, and since there were no remaining questions, we had the first reading on May 28th, and we will have second reading tonight. Item 4 was discussion of gas and electric franchise, and the gas franchise agreement with Columbia Gas has expired and will go out to bid in the near future. Committee member Leslie Mitchell asked franchise information on cities near Georgetown, but not included in the summary of cities provided. The committee also asked to review historical data on cable franchise fees and the decline over the past few years due to decreasing demand. Item 5, we discussed building inspection permits and state jurisdiction of projects and public projects. The current ordinance governing these fees does not provide an avenue for waiver, but the waiver or fees is often requested for public projects. The committee agreed that the option to grant waivers or reductions, if any, should be defined by the ordinance. Committee member Leslie Mitchell asked for examples of permit fees for various projects. Chief Administrator Golden stated she would compile recent project data and provide the information to the committee. That being all business, we adjourned at 8:36.
Okay, all right. Thank you there, Councilman Hampton. Next, we had Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Give me just 1 second here. I gotta. The meeting was started, here we go. Was held on June 18th. Meeting was called to order by Sonja Wilkins Brent at 4:35. Members present were Mayor Jenkins, Councilman Member Brent, Council Member Stone. We've got Robert Bruin, Eddie Hightower, Karen Leverins, and Shay Fields. The minutes were approved, unanimously approved. Public Works general update was that Robert Bruin reported that storm drains have been cleaned out in May and June, and have been helping 20 different code enforcement jobs. They continue to mow various properties around town. City Engineer Hightower reported that the paving list was recently approved and sent to the contractor for scheduling. The TAP grant for sidewalks on Main Street, West Main Street, are being finalized and will be sent to the council in the near future. Also, re-brick laying sidewalks on Main Street, and then the Indian Hills Stormwater Project are continuing. One thing that we will need to do when the state repaves Main Street is we will need to restripe Main Street, and we will look at adding handicap parking stalls in the different blocks. There was no general discussion, and the meeting was adjourned at 5:18.
All righty. Thank you there, Mr. Stone. Next is item number 8, which is the fiscal year 2024 audit presentation with RFH PLLC. Okay.
Hello, thank you all for having me this evening. My name is Ashton Powers, and I'm here with RFH, and I'll be presenting the fiscal year 2024 financial audit. So each of you should have received a green-bound booklet with our audit report. And then with that, the letter to governance, I just wanted to mention that that letter is for governance and management purposes. And then the Greenbound report is our overall audit report. That will also be for the public. So I know the audit report contains a lot of information, but I'll just be highlighting the key audit information today. So I'd like to begin on page 1, which has our independent auditor's report. This report states that we have issued a clean or unmodified opinion for the city. This is the ideal outcome or best result you could get during the audit process. And we've stated that in the second paragraph in this report, where it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. So again, this would be the ideal or best outcome you could get during the audit. The next report I want to turn your attention to begins on page 67. This report is on internal control and compliance in relation to government auditing standards. So in the first subheading, we have the report on internal control over financial reporting. And in here we state that during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be material weaknesses. So in terms of government auditing standards, this is the best result that the city could receive. And directly under that, we have our subsection on report on compliance and other matters. The last sentence of that paragraph states the results of our test disclose no instances of noncompliance or other matters that are required to be reported under government auditing standards. So again, this is the ideal outcome. There were no instances of noncompliance that needed to be reported. The final report I will draw your attention to is on page 69. We refer to this as the Uniform Guidance or Single Audit Report. This report addresses or draws your attention to our federal funds testing. We are required to perform a single audit or federal funds testing when the city has expended over $750,000 in federal funds. So this opinion is stated there at the top in the second paragraph, where we say, in our opinion, the city of Georgetown, Kentucky complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements referred to above that could have a direct and material effect on each of its major federal programs. So again, this is the ideal outcome or best result you could get during the audit. And I wanted to just mention that the items I have not addressed directly today include management discussion analysis in the report. Management has prepared that, and we have confirmed it reconciles to the financial statements. The face of the financial statements are on pages 11 through 19 for government-wide and funds. Following that are the notes to the financial statements. Those are on pages 20 through 50. That just provides additional information on the base financial statement information. And then following that, you have required supplementary and supplementary information to give you additional details. With that being said, if you all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, are there any questions? Yes, sir, go ahead, Mr. Mickey.
Thank you, Mayor. Having just gotten this report, so are there any training or requirements of the legislative body in connection to this report?
Any training?
Right, or awareness or anything, much like nonprofit boards and things like that, anything that this legislative body needs to comply with or do to conform to this?
No, I wanted to bring out, again, it is highlighted best in the report that begins on page 67. But typically, if we had any findings with internal controls or compliance with overall city regulations, we would have to highlight it in this report. But during our testing, we didn't find anything that constituted as a significant deficiency or material weakness, which those terms are also defined in the report. But there was nothing we found that was required to be reported to you all or to management at that level. So I would say there were no items we wanted to bring out in that report.
Okay. And then a quick follow-up. Were there any recommendations that were provided?
There were no recommendations, and I guess I should highlight that also on the last page of this report. If we had any findings during the audit, it would be on that schedule of findings and question costs. And I believe on that last page, We have no findings related to the financial statements, the federal awards, or prior audit findings. Those would be findings from the prior year.
But no recommendations of best practices or anything like that?
No, none to report.
Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just a comment. Good job, Stacy, for having such a clean report presented from the auditor. So that reflects back on you. Good job.
Any other? I just want to say, I don't want to leave home without her. I'm going to tell you that right now. So there you go. So any other questions or comments? Thank you so much. Next, we have a resolution for the fiscal year 2026 regular scheduled city council and committee meetings. And this is a temporary thing here, resolution here, to, so we can actually give you and the public, when we meet, locations, times, and so on. So we've done this before, and we try to do this yearly at this point, and hopefully when we get into the new place, we won't have to do this as much, okay? That's the idea. So at this time, I will have to have I can see that Mr. Hampton has beat me to the draw, but so we'll let Mr. Hampton, he is going to make a motion, and do I have a second?
Second.
All right, okay, it was a tie, so Ms. Hamrick, you're gonna win. Sorry, Mr. Stone, maybe next time.
It's okay.
So, Ms. Hamrick, second. Are there further questions and or comments? All those in favor of the resolution, fiscal year 2026 regular scheduled city council and committee meetings signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Let the record reflect that this motion passed. Item 10 is the second readings. We have 3, and I'm going to ask that our financial guru come up, which will be Stacy, and it's to be the budget amendment ordinance, year 2024-25, and the sponsors of this ordinance is Tammy Lusby Mitchell and Greg Hampton.
I'm just here if there's any questions after the reading.
All right. If you read, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance amending the annual budget ordinance for fiscal year July 1, 2024 through July 30th, 2025. General Fund. Prior year revenues are decreased by $1,351,774. General Government expenses are decreased by $60,000. City Clerk's expenses are increased by $20,950. Police expenses are increased by $53,577. Fire expenses are decreased by $4,836. City engineer expenses are decreased by $120,000. Interlocal expenses are decreased by $533,715. Transfers to other funds are decreased by $707,750. Grant fund. State grant revenue is increased by $342,010. Capital expenses are increased by $342,10. Environmental Services Fund. Transfer from other funds are decreased by $707,750. Stormwater expenses are decreased by $707,750. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. The ordinance shall take effect after its passage and publication according to law. The full text of this ordinance is available in the city clerk's office at 629 North Broadway, Georgetown, Kentucky, or at our website, www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time, May 28, 2025. Publicly read second time and passed on June 23, 2025.
At this time, I will entertain a motion.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Mr. Stone. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Mr. Hampton. Are there further questions and or comments? At this time, Madam Clerk, we need to have a roll call vote.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Ms. Tingle Sams?
Yes.
Ms. Leslie Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Minky?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Ms. Hambrick?
Yes.
Mr. Crisp?
Yes.
Ms. Wilkins Brown.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Let the record reflect that this motion passed 8-0. Next, item B, the budget ordinance for the year 2025-26. Sponsors are Tammy Lusby Mitchell and Greg Hampton. At this time, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky, adopting the annual budget for the fiscal period July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government. Summary. Section 1. Adopts by incorporated exhibit the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky as follows. Governmental funds. Prior year revenues, $10,692,459. Revenues. Municipal taxation, $4,004,450. Licenses and permits, $37,917,000. Franchise fees, $2,274,000. Fines and forfeitures, $87,053. Intergovernmental revenues, $16,254,847. Charges for service, $1,846,714. Other revenue, $515,000. Other financing sources and transfers, $6,600,356. Total city revenues, $69,499,420. Expenditures. General government, $3,113,028. City council, $210,593. City clerk, $389,675. Police, $16,248,336. Public works, $5,425,205. Fire, $11,967,764. Code enforcement, $548,453. Building inspection, $916,031. Dispatch telecommunications, $4,239,949. Utilities, $822,082. Community services, $10,256,101. Interlocal, $4,892,356. Oops, hold on, I think I'm off. Sorry. What?
Right there.
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna go back. Utilities. Sorry, we need Tracy here, this is hard. Okay, utilities, $956,435. Community services, $822,082. Interlocal, $10,256,101. Self-insured medical plan expenses, $4,892,356. Capital outlay, $17,025,411. Debt service, $1,116,855. Transfer to other funds, $2,063,605. Total city expenditures, $80,191,879. Proprietary funds, revenues, sanitation, $2,838,000. Cemetery, $246,000. Intergovernmental revenue, $256,654. Other revenue, $6,000. Other financing sources and transfers, $1,713,605. Total proprietary revenues, $5,060,259. Expenditures, sanitation, $2,838,000. Stormwater, $1,461,951. Cemetery, $760,308. Total proprietary expenditures, $5,060,259. Section 2 authorizes the mayor, except as provided in the Georgetown purchasing policy, adopted it in Municipal Order 1128 and amended in Municipal Order 2022-17, to enter into any contracts or agreements necessary to fulfill the operation of city government with the allocations listed in this ordinance. Section 3 provides that if any section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance is for any reason held unconstitutional or otherwise invalid, such infirmity shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of this ordinance. Section 4 provides that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 629 North Broadway, Georgetown, Kentucky 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time, May 28th, 2025. Publicly read for the second time, June 23rd, 2025.
Thank you. Ms. Bertram, appreciate that. At this time, I will entertain a motion.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Mr. Hampton. Do I have a second? Second made by Ms. Mitchell. Are there further questions and or comments? At this time, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Ms. Tingle Samms?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Ms. Leslie Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Minky?
Yes.
Ms. Hambrick?
Yes.
Mr. Crisp?
Yes.
Ms. Wilkins Brent?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that this motion passed 8-0. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next is the amendment to the personnel ordinance. Sponsors are Kim Minky and Michael Crisp.
An ordinance amending Section 2-60 of the Code of Ordinance regarding personnel. 1, amends Exhibit B of Section 2-60C of the Code of Ordinance to increase the number of permit technician positions from 1 to 2 within the Georgetown Scott County Building Inspection Department, increase the number of police captain positions from 1 to 2, and the number of police officer positions from 57 to 59, as well as to change the grade of the body-worn camera program coordinator from 104 to 108 within the Georgetown Police Department, increase the number of firefighter EMT positions from 33 to 36, the number of code enforcement officer positions from 1 to 2 within the Georgetown Fire Department, and create 1 coordinator position and change the title of the assistant manager position to assistant coordinator within the Georgetown Scott County 911 Center. 2, provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the Georgetown City Clerk's Office, 629 North Broadway, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time June 9, 2025, publicly read for the second time and passed June 23, 2025.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions?
Motion, Mayor.
Okay, next good item on out. Motion is made by Mr. Minky. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Mr. Stone. Are there further questions and or comments? At this time, Madam Clerk, could you take the roll?
Ms. Wilkins Brent?
Yes.
Mr. Crisp?
Yes.
Ms. Hambrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Minky?
Yes.
Ms. Leslie Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Tingle Samms?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Miller. First, on item number 11, we have the first reading of the zoning ordinance text amendment. Sections 4.3, 4.4, schedule of dimensions, area regulations. Sponsors Mr. Kim Minky. You can come on up there.
Oh, maybe we do the reading first and we'll ask the question.
Okay,
I'll
yes.
Stand up here.
Yeah, stand up and be ready, just in case. All right. Now, go ahead.
An ordinance amending Article 4, Section 4.3, residential districts, Article 4, Section 4.4, commercial districts, and the schedule of dimension and area regulations of the Georgetown Scott County zoning ordinance as recommended by the Georgetown Scott County Planning Commission. Summary. Amends Georgetown Scott County zoning ordinance, the zoning ordinance, quote unquote, Article 4, Section 4.3, permitted uses in R2 districts to calculate the maximum residential density by dwelling units per gross acre instead of net acre, and to add planned development projects for residential use with or without neighborhood commercial uses as defined as a permitted use. 2, repeals and replaces zoning ordinance Article 4, Section 4.34, permitted uses in the R3 districts to limit residential density to 16 dwelling units per gross acre for applicable residential uses meeting lot dimension standards, and to add planned development projects for residential use with or without neighborhood commercial uses as defined as a permitted use. 3, amend zoning ordinance Article 4, Section 4.35, conditional uses in the R2 and R3 districts to delete subsection A to remove neighborhood commercial facilities as part of a planned development project from the list of conditional uses and sequentially reorganizing the remaining subsections. 4, repeals and replaces zoning ordinance Article 4, Section 4.41, B1, neighborhood commercial, clarify the intent of the B1 zoning district and establish limitations on the size and hours of operation of commercial uses located within the B1 zone. 5, amend zoning ordinance Article 4, Section 4.411, permitted uses relating to the B1 neighborhood commercial zone to limit residential density to 4.4 dwelling units per gross acre and to add planned development projects for permitted uses with or without residential use as a permitted use. 6, amends zoning ordinance Article 4, Section 4.441, permitted uses relating to the B4 community commercial zone to limit the maximum residential density to not exceed 12 dwelling units per gross acre and to add planned development projects for commercial use with or without residential use above the first floor as a permitted use. 7, amends zoning ordinance Article 4, Section 4.442, conditional uses relating to the B4 community commercial zone to add inpatient medical facilities as a conditional use. 8, amends the schedule of dimension and area regulations set forth in the zoning ordinance to show that maximum residential density is calculated by gross acreage and to increase the maximum height of buildings in the R3 zoning district to 3 stories or not to exceed 50 feet. 9, provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's office, 629 North Broadway Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time, June 23rd, 2025.
Are there any questions?
Mayor, I do.
Yes, sir. Why?
It's a fantastic question. So there's really two themes that go throughout this text amendment. The first is related to introducing the concept of mixed-use planned unit developments through a variety of zones. In essence, we just passed a comprehensive plan that said we need to find areas for more mixed use. This is the first step in that direction. So what we've done is we've tried to introduce through planned unit developments the idea of neighborhood commercial in some of our residential zones. And we've tried to introduce the idea of a certain type of residential use in some of our commercial zones. So that's number one. The second kind of theme that you'll see is this shift from analyzing density on net to analyzing on gross. Why do that? Really two different reasons. The first is ease of use as a community. When somebody calls and talks to my office and says, hey, I have X number of acres, how many dwelling units can I put on this? It's with gross, it's very simple. You just take the total number of units, multiply it by the acres. To calculate on net, you have to ask about 5 other questions first. Then that just comes down to what is the definition of net density. And net density, as we apply it, removes out any public or private streets or other infrastructure facilities, and that's not counted. To do that, you have to calculate that first. So
that's kind of what you're supposed to do, is take out the green space, take out the root streets, and then give them an answer. I mean, the way it's written appears to me that you're just going, okay, stuff more houses in this little land as you can get, and that's at face value, that's what it looks like.
So just to clarify one other thing, so this just kind of goes to best practices. When you look at how other regions, how other areas do this, typically gross acreage is utilized for new developments. And that's just a trend nationwide. And so anytime we have a new type of development, which could be a mixed-use development, could be a commercial development, could be a singularly residential development, gross is typically what's utilized. Net density is typically utilized for infill developments. Essentially, you already have an established neighborhood, and then you're trying to redevelop an area. That would be best practices to use net density. As far as the concern about open space, yeah, that's still in our code. We still require that. So if you have an open space, like a C1 zone, that's required to be removed, and you don't get credit for that either way.
But, so you're saying that you're gonna make the house, potentially, things could be closer together?
No.
Okay, oh, thank you. Okay, so explain the gross and the net again.
Okay. So we're talking density either way.
Okay.
So
The
one is.
same density? The same density?
Yes, yeah. Now, in a couple weeks, I'm sure you're going to get a housing needs assessment that's going to talk about what high density should look like or what medium density could look like. But right now, we're not discussing that. Right now, our R3, which is supposed to be our high density zone, says you can have up to 16 dwelling units per acre. We're not changing that number. The thing that's changing is how you calculate the density. So there's two primary ways to calculate. You can calculate on net, or you can calculate on gross. Now, what I just said just a minute ago is that best practices is typically anytime you do an infill development, an established neighborhood, you would utilize net. For new development, typically utilize gross. Now, what is net and what is gross? Net requires you, before you can have a number of how many dwelling units can go on a property, you have to basically take out any sort of land that's going to be devoted to infrastructure or roadways. For gross, it's a very simple calculation. This number of acres times this many housing units yields this much development. Now, again, why, and I started with this, it's for ease of use. When somebody comes into the office and wants to know how many houses they can potentially develop, removing out any open space or any C1 zones, which are typically associated with environmentally sensitive areas, it's really easy just to say X times X equals the total development. To do otherwise, you have to really design the project first, and then we can calculate that. The one thing I will just add to this conversation is the idea that whichever way the city wants to move forward, and that's why we're here talking about this, we have to make sure that when we're developing efficiently and effectively, because we don't want to create sprawl, right? Nobody wants that. And so from our perspective, in line with best practices, and for ease of use, this simple shift from net to gross will allow us to more effectively plan for future developments, because it means that we can take a look at our zoning maps, basically say this is the number of acres that we have in this zone, this is how many housing units that could produce, and then compare it to what is our growth pattern or growth projection.
So in
Did
no-
that answer?
No.
Okay.
No. But, so in no way, so a developer comes to you and says, okay, I've got 100 acres. All right, this is what we're going to do, and you're going to calculate the 100 acres. So when they get and they're in the middle of the development, and you say they can have, let's just say they can have 100 houses on it for easy math. Okay, so when they get into that plan of that development, and then they put the roads in, they put the, maybe there's space that can't be used and things like that, then do you go back to that and say, oh, well, after all, you can't fit 100 houses in here?
So in this situation, one dwelling unit per acre, the idea would be exempting out those environmentally sensitive areas. At the beginning of the project, we're able to do a simple calculation that says you have 100 acres, you get 100 houses. And then they develop as necessary, still meeting our other dimensional requirements. This does not change our lot size requirements, it doesn't change our setbacks. But it does say this is the number of units you get, and that math is done upfront and is pretty easy to do. With net, it requires you to submit a development plan, subtract out that acreage, and you don't know that answer up front, and we don't know that answer up front either, because we don't know what their layout's going to look like.
So you're not changing lot size. So if you said, we calculate that out and said you could have 100 houses for your 100 acres, so when it comes down to it and you put the roads and streets and all that in to it,
You still get 100 houses.
you still get 100 houses.
And
if
with net, you would get less.
And with net, what'd you say?
You would get fewer houses.
Ah, I see. So you are going to be able to have more houses. Is that correct?
When you calculate net versus gross,
Because we're currently calculating
on net,
net. So if you calculate gross, then there'll be more houses.
theoretically.
So that changes your density, that increases your density, correct?
Except your rules don't change for lot size. And your rules don't change for lot size or road frontage, et cetera. So you would have, you would have less regardless of the way you did it. It would just be where in the process you would have less.
It all depends, again, on what that development plan would look like. Now, the question is, again, is how did you come up with those 100 houses? That's the question here. And so using gross density, if you had one dwelling unit per acre, you would just say, I have 100 acres, I can build 100 houses, and then the layout is decided.
Okay, so my concern is, it's language, it's a tool that you all are using, I get that part of it, but my concern is, I don't want to sit up here and vote for anything that allows the planning and zoning to go in and make anything more dense than things that we have today. I don't want the houses closer together, I don't want any of that closer together, because sitting as a council member, which you all don't deal with that, but as us, the things that come to us that become problems are usually in the more dense areas, like it's parking on the street with each other, we're parking in front of mailboxes, you know, all those kind of things. So the denser you make something, then the more problems that we have, then the more we have to use our resources to go out there and take care of it. So then by you making the area denser, then it ends up being a problem for the city and costing more for our city resources to go out and have to take care of that. So that's what my concern is, and that's what I was trying to get to that. It seems like with changing it to gross acreage, that it can be, even though you're saying the setbacks are the same and all that, but you did say that it would be denser. And so I'm not supporting anything that wants to be denser.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was thinking out loud, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, that's
All right.
okay.
That's fine. All right. Okay, so anyone else has a question or so on?
Mayor, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask the fire chief a question?
Yes, yeah, going on.
Chief, were you involved in this at all before, or do you have concerns or anything?
I will say that we met with the staff from Planning and Zoning. We just had a good conversation just about what the future could look like as far as what we would like to see, including 4-minute responses. But as far as this specifically, it may have been discussed a little bit. As far as the ins and outs of it, I'm not real familiar with it, but I do know that we have had conversations. We've worked over the last couple of weeks since our presentation just to kind of figure out ways to move forward to try to make things, fit into those pockets of growth, to make sure that we can provide coverage.
Is there any concern about the height of any of the structures?
I mean, height's going to come into play, just in general with our ladder truck. You're looking at a 100-foot ladder. That's not for a 10-story building. You got to be off the collapse zone, so you're looking at 4 or 5 stories. And I mean, the higher we go, the harder it's going to be just in general. It's
Right.
not going to be over this, but just operationally in general, it's going to be different. But, sooner or later, that's where we're going to have to go, probably is up.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Okay.
If I may.
Yes, come on up.
I just want to be very clear about this. The primary driving effort behind this was not to try to sneak density into any sort of development. The primary drive behind this is one of ease of use and effectiveness as a planning tool. Right now, if you take a look at any section of land and say how many houses can be there, my answer that I get to provide to you guys is it depends. It depends on road layouts. It depends on what the concept plan entails, many, many steps. By going to gross, which again is a national trend to utilize for new developments, it's just as simple as me saying the number of acres times the overall density gives you guys a real number that you can utilize to figure out those answers when it comes to on-street parking or overcrowding or impacts to other infrastructure. And so I totally understand any hesitation to have unintended consequences. But each development would still need to go through the same development process, whether it's gross or net. Would still have the same other area and dimensional standards. And just to also be clear about this, there is much more to this particular ordinance than that simple net versus gross.
Well, what more is there that you want to tell us and outline and say this is important, an important tool?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's that utilization of plan unit developments to incorporate mixed-use style developments into existing zones. So in other communities, what you'll often see is specific areas identified as mixed-use areas. We don't have that zone. And so instead of trying to create a new zone and going back over a land use map and trying to identify areas, what we've done instead is identify within our high-density residential zones, which already exist, the need for integrated neighborhood services. And then the reverse of that is true for our identified neighborhood services areas. Maybe it makes sense to introduce, I think it's 4.4 dwelling units per acre, low-density development into those areas. That's a big step, and again, pursuing the goals of that comprehensive plan.
So a mixed use, explain your definition of a mixed use.
Absolutely. So for the past close to 100 years at this point, the American development pattern has been one of single uses. When we look at a zoning map, Georgetown included, that's what we mostly have. We identify commercial areas, we identify residential areas, and those two uses singularly pursue those goals. So you can have residential areas that are, large lot, single-family homes. You can have residential areas that are, in this case, looking at 3-story apartment complexes. But those are all residential uses and are isolated, typically. That requires you to leave your house to get to these other services that are necessary for you to enjoy the city of Georgetown. Mixed use is a very different type of development model. We're downtown Georgetown right now. This is a historic mixed use area. And in particular, this idea of commercial first floor with the ability to put either additional commercial above or residential above that. That's what we're trying to obtain here. Now, I want to clarify one thing as well. Mixed use does not have to just be residential over commercial. You can have side-by-sides mixed use. You can create development patterns just with the way you interconnect the uses. But the idea is that, in particular, what we're targeting in this case is planned unit developments, where a developer or a property owner has a vision where they want to incorporate a series of variety of uses inside a small geographic area so that somebody who's living there could maybe work a job there, could maybe benefit from the services that are provided there. So that's how I would define mixed use.
Mayor, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So if we already have mixed use in downtown Georgetown, why do we have a need for this ordinance if it's already allowed in downtown?
That's another great question. So downtowns, again, this is not just a unique to Georgetown thing, but they normally get a special zoning designation called Central Business District. That's what the zoning is right here. Central Business District zoning is typically reserved for just one area, typically the downtowns. And so what we're trying to do is create this option for more places than just right here. That's, again, this is an idea that's put forward in our comprehensive plan, that's a pattern of development that the residents of Georgetown would like to see, but they'd like to see it done well. So again, this is our effort to step in that direction.
Question.
Yes. Go ahead. Ms. Mitchell.
So if this goes through, would you be able to retroactively change existing neighborhoods to mixed use?
To do that would require a landowner to go back into the development process to develop as a planned unit development. In order to do that, they would have to control all of the land that they are now proposing for this planned unit development. So if there's a circumstance where there's a large tract of previously undeveloped land, then there's potential for that to happen. But just the reality of the situation is if we're looking at a previously developed and established neighborhood, the act of consolidating enough property to make something like that make sense, relatively limited.
And what I mean by that is if the designation means something different in the future, then what about, say, the incidence of an established neighborhood like South Broadway, where we had a potential business come in, and they could argue, well, this now means mixed use.
Oh, sure.
The designation. And so what happens in that case?
So in instances like that, what we're really talking about then is what happens if in the future a parcel is rezoned. Because the likelihood of that happening with this ordinance No, that's not what the intent is. That's not how it's written. It's not even made to be an option. But in the event that you were ever have some sort of large-scale rezoning of an area, number one, the current uses, if for some reason they were to be disallowed by the new zoning ordinance, would become what are considered pre-existing non-conforming uses, or in some circumstances can be a pre-existing non-conforming structure. That use is allowed to continue indefinitely, as long as it's continually kept up. However, if an area were to be rezoned, let's take an instance, and let's say we have like an R1C zoned area. Right now, that's a predominantly single-family zone. If through the future land use map process and then a rezone process, it was rezoned to R3, and if a developer was able to consolidate enough land to make it economically feasible, they wanted to then develop an R3 exclusionary use, like, I don't know, a two-story apartment or something like that. That becomes a use by right because it's included in the zone. But that is why when we look at potentially rezoning areas, you have to look at the entire list of zones or uses that are allowed within that zone, because as a use by right, it could be any of them. That's not what we're talking about here. And again, it's why we've decided that as a first step, the idea of integrating mixed use through planned unit developments as opposed to a standalone zone with standalone uses by right, we believe that this is a better first step in that direction.
Mayor, if I could.
Yes.
Holden, thank you for bringing all this and all the additional information. It's great, but one thing I want to bring up is you said there's more to this ordinance than just the gross acres, but everywhere it highlights changes from gross to net. It seems like a pretty big.
Net to gross.
I'm sorry, net to gross. That seems like a pretty big part of it. I mean, I'm just trying to understand that, it's a big change, even though I know it's maybe a nationwide trend, but it still seems like, me reading it, what I was getting out of it was, we're gonna take it net and take out all the exclusionary things, the stormwater drains and streets and natural areas that you can't build on, and just cut that down and put more houses in.
So the C1 stuff, again, that's going to be removed. You don't get credit for that. That was actually a part of the discussion. If you have property that is an environmentally sensitive area, should you get credit for that land? If you're not planning to build there, but you plan to build somewhere else. And that was a resounding no. And so that was preserved. I will account for the highlighting due to the thoroughness of your city attorney, who did a fantastic job going through the red line version and coming up with stuff. That same highlighted version on our area and dimensions regulations is about 3 red boxes. But because it touches every zone, it gets relisted every time a new zone is mentioned. And so for consistency across the zones, the same way that we calculate by net now, for consistency, the proposal was to calculate by gross. And so it comes up every time a new zone is listed. We have many zones in this particular item.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Yes.
So, I'm glad to hear that people got input, obviously, on the comprehensive plan, and that you feel like this reflects the will of the people on this specific issue. So we need to kind of make sure of that, but I assume that you all have made sure of that.
Yes.
Okay. And also, it would be interesting to me to see what the housing needs assessment might say about the need for a change like this, so that we can coalesce both of those studies as part of our deliberation of trying to figure this out. I don't know when that's coming, but we might be able to, before we vote on this, have a little bit of a highlight in that specific area, because I'm really concerned about balancing the issues that some of you are bringing up with the need for mixed-use housing and apartments and things like that for people that can't afford single-family half-acre lots.
I agree. It's incredibly important. I will tell you, this is a part of a larger discussion But for the most part, we design housing in 3 phases: low, medium, and high density. Those are not standardized terms. We get to decide what low, medium, and high means to Georgetown, and we should. I'll tell you my personal opinion. If we're gonna have a high-density zone, we should probably make it pretty high. If we're gonna have a low-density zone, we need to keep it pretty low. Because that way, we're able to meet that wide range of housing needs. This is our best shot at it so far. I always appreciate feedback. Whatever the decision of the council is, I encourage us to continue this conversation. And if this takes more time, if we need a housing needs assessment to go through first, we totally understand. Thank you for your time.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry. So Holden, I understand what's trying to be done here, and I think that it's good work. If the gross and net were taken out, those words, would you be able to achieve what you're trying to do without those little technicalities that'll make your life easier?
Yeah, Ms. Mitchell, I'll tell you, Lesbian Mitchell.
Either.
I don't ever want to let perfection be the enemy of the good. Like I said, there's more to this ordinance than any one thing. And so if we can take a step in the right direction, which I believe all of this is, then I'd be more than happy with that. Again, the only reason that's included at this phase is for predictability, ease of use, and my ability to tell you guys what build out of an area would look like. If that doesn't make sense right now and we like net, stick with net.
I think that seems to be the overwhelming concern, and not the entire program, but that wording.
Sure.
All right, Mr. Minkey.
Yeah, so thank you for raising that. I think great conversation and discussion tonight. Again, I go back to, and this is the reason that I agreed to sponsor this, is because it comes back down to how we're implementing the best practices that are out there that coalesce with the updates to the comprehensive plan for the making our neighborhoods and our community more livable, and for providing more quality of life opportunities for folks that maybe have different needs. Because one of the things that you'll notice across the country is there are a lot of communities where they don't have bus lines, they don't have transportation needs, and folks need that. They need jobs in close proximity to where they live, and those kinds of opportunities for recreation and so on and so on and so on. So being able to implement these kinds of best practices allow us to meet the needs of the community and the needs of folks where they are and where they could be. And so it all fits together. It's pieces of a puzzle, and sometimes we may get hung up on terminology, but when it comes down to these are the true parameters and restrictions on the development plan that has to be approved, it's all part of the planning process. So I don't think we need to get so hung up on terminology, as long as the intent is there and the protections are there in the process and the development process that are there. So just wanted to share that.
Well, Mr. Holden, I appreciate that, what you bring to this.
Can I ask a statement and a question, maybe? One, I'm sure you're familiar with 15-minute cities.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then, which this is what this is reminding me of, which started in Europe. But nevertheless, with that, language does matter because we have so little, the council has so little authority over planning and zoning and what happens with planning and zoning, which is my frustration, Todd's frustration. Todd said a few weeks ago about rubber stamping, and you took offense at that. But so many developments that we have proposed from here and said, yes, this is fine, don't end up on paper like what we said. So even though it's giving you a tool, it's still not, we have no confidence in what we approve is going to be what's actually going to happen. So I think that's a little, for some of us that are maybe hung up over a word or a language or how it's written, that's the reason why. Because we have voted, over the years, we voted for several things and it did not come to pass as to what we voted on. So that's why we are cautious and concerned and maybe nitpicking to some degree on this, because personally, I would love to tighten up planning and zoning, so a whole lot of things couldn't happen. But I know you need the freedom to do what you need to do, but, I mean, I'm not speaking for Todd, so I'll just speak for myself. It seems like developers have come in here with our rapid growth and have really taken advantage of the city, and a lot of that has been let happen through planning and zoning, whether it's because of weakness in our ordinance or something else that's going on. So I want to make sure the ordinance is tight, and as you heard me, I'm not a big supporter of apartments, although I know that's what mixed use is about, but I'm certainly not of giving extra density to things and making neighbors get closer, because it just creates problems with it. So that's my speech.
All right. Once again, Mr. Holden, I appreciate you coming in and giving us the information. I foresee this is a process that it's going to take some time, and, we'll just slow step it and see where we go, and we'll talk with you, I'm sure, in the future as we go forward with this. Thank you again.
Council.
Thanks, Holden.
All right, next is item number 12, Georgetown Municipal Water Sewer Service. So we got a sub for tonight, now that
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chase is on vacation?
He is. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
well, all right.
We have two purchase orders for council consideration tonight. The first is for a skid steer loader for Wilson Equipment. It's a new skid steer loader in the amount of $69,790. This loader would be used on a variety of tasks, as is shown in your packet. Chief among them, maintenance of approximately 22 gravel pump station access roads. We estimate, our collection staff estimates the need for the skid steer on a daily basis, or approximately 260 work days in a given year. Purchase of the skid steer would be roughly half the cost of renting the skid steer for the 260 days per year that we plan to use it. This would replace a 1993 Kubota tractor that's currently operating beyond its useful service life. The pre-owned skid steer would only be approximately $4,800 cheaper at $65,000. In addition, the new skid steer comes with a 2-year, 2,000-hour warranty. The used skid steer comes with no warranty. We have the necessary equipment to transport the skid steer as necessary. This was not in the FY25 budget. It was going to be in the FY26 budget, but we had unused funds in the budget for lead and copper. We had put funds in there thinking that we may have to do that lead and copper survey with an external contractor. We did not. We did that in-house, and so we had funds available that were unspent on the lead and copper inventory that we'd like to use toward the skid steer.
All right, you have heard. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. Minky. Do I have a second? Second made by Mr. Hampton. Are there further questions and/or comments? All those in favor of item A, the Wilson Equipment skid loader for $69,790, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Let the record reflect that the item passed. Next is item B, Judy Construction for $410,685.77.
Yes, sir. This is pay app number 50 for the wastewater treatment plant number 1 expansion. This pay app represents 89% of the budget expended. We are still on track for beneficial use at 3/31 of 2025, and substantial completion remains at 12/31/2025.
All right, at this time, I will entertain a motion.
Motion.
Okay, wait, since we got the tie again, I'm gonna give it to Ms. Brent this time. So that means that Ms. Brent, you made a motion, and Ms. Mitchell, I'm gonna let you be the second on that one. How about that?
That's fine.
All right, are there any questions and/or comments? All in favor of the motion for Judy Construction for $410,685.77. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise.
Mayor, council, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 13, and we're going to ask Ms. Candace Whitehouse to come up, and she's going to talk about from the Office of Affordable Housing and Homeless Prevention Resolution TBRA grant funding.
Yes.
Thank you.
The Office of Affordable Housing and Homelessness Prevention has been offered the tenant-based rental assistance 2025 to 2027 grant funding through the home funds at the Kentucky Housing Corporation. This is a 2-year grant that totals $104,000 plus 10% for administrative costs. Kentucky Housing Corporation had previously awarded these TBRA funds to Scott County due to the high need for this program in our area. However, a transfer of funds has been deemed necessary by KHC, and so their staff reached out to me to inquire if I would be interested in taking over this program and the funds be transferred to this office. Due to my experience with administering this grant and how well our ESG grant has been managed since we were awarded that last year, they were hoping that the funds could be placed with this office. There's no match requirement, which is icing on the cake for this grant, and the goals of this program align with those that are in my office. TBRA is similar to the rapid rehousing program that we just got up and running. It just has some slight differences, but overall it's a medium-term tenant-based rental assistance program that assists individuals with attaining housing and offers them support while they are searching for a more long-term solution. The additional funding in this program coming in under my office will help open us up for more opportunities to serve folks, not just because of the additional funding dollars, but rapid rehousing is limited to 30% AMI and below, and TBRA opens us up to 60% AMI and below. I feel confident that moving forward, if we take this grant under this office, that this arrangement will improve outcomes on all sides, and that the TBRA program will be very effective run through my office. So.
All righty. At this time, I will entertain a motion.
Motion.
Motion made by Ms. Hambrick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Mr. Chris. Are there any questions and comments? Yes, ma'am. Sir.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Kenneth, how many individuals can be helped with this money over the 2-year period?
So it's not a certain number, but I think right now they have 4 households, but I think there can be more on there. So the ones they're transferring to us, I think there's 4 households. But I think we could get to like 6 or 7 households at a time. But it just depends on how long those households are on and how much assistance they require. So it's got some moving parts.
Okay. And those households are here in the community?
Okay. Mr. Crisp.
Yeah. Candace, what is the criteria for the applicants who will be part of this program? Is there something, has that already been set up yet?
Yeah, so the TBRA program, like I said, is 60% AMI or below. But those folks, really the criteria is a little bit looser than rapid rehousing. So they can be currently unhoused or at risk of losing their housing, either one, or in one of our various programs like shelters here in the community. So just in need of assistance to maintain their housing.
Great, thank you.
Any more questions? Motion been made, properly second. No more questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that the motion passed. Next, item 14, we're going to bring Ms. Stacy back up again. Item A, municipal order assignment of general fund balance as of 6/30/2025.
Just want to explain this since we have a couple of new council members that haven't been around for this part. As part of our audit, which was just presented, there is a line item in fund balance that says assigned. Council has to take action by June 30 of each year. And basically what this is you are committing a portion of fund balance to certain purchases or commitments that have already been made. And what we do is anything that we accounted for in next year's budget is already covered. But these are things, purchase orders are things that were done in the last little bit that departments don't expect to receive by June 30th. So there is a list in the memo that tells you exactly what it is. So it is either an open contract that we thought would be done by June 30th as we were developing the budget, but there's still a little bit lingering out there, so it wasn't accounted for in next year's budget. So what this does is this kind of reserves a little bit of our fund balance to cover these obligations, and then when we do our first budget amendment next year, we will incorporate these into the actual budget. So, but we have to do it by June 30th of each year to mark that part of our fund balance is in the audit report is assigned.
Is this new law, or do we do?
No, it's not a law. It is something that it's a municipal order 11026, which is part of our budgeting and everything.
Okay.
And how we do this. It's also just part of the governmental accounting standards. You can't show something as committed or assigned in the fund balance
Okay.
unless the council approves it. So
Got it.
it's just some contractual commitments, some purchase obligations that, as we were preparing next year's budget, we thought would be done by the end of the year. But every year in June, we kind of run through all of our open purchase orders and say, okay, what did we think was going to get here that didn't? And we bring this at the last council meeting of the year just to make sure we are covering those. And again, the first budget amendment of the year will actually incorporate them into the
It's
the
just
line
more
item budget.
clear accounting, accountability.
Yes, yes, just to make sure we've assigned part of our fund balance to show that it's not unrestricted. We're assigning part of fund balance to cover these obligations.
Okay, I think I understand.
So,
All right, not everybody jump at this opportunity at one time. Unless you have, we got a motion made by Ms. Mitchell. Do you have a second made by Mr. Hampton? Are there further questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Let the record reflect the item passes. Give me a motion passes. Item B, municipal order of financial audit services.
yes, each year the city has to undergo a financial audit by a third-party certified public accounting firm, which is what was presented tonight. So we did issue, every 3 years, we issue a request for proposals to make sure that we're getting a qualified, certified firm with experience in governmental audits. And about a third of the scoring criteria is also cost. As long as they're all certified and qualified to perform these audits, then cost does become a little bit of the factor. So we had 2 firms respond based on the scoring, mainly due to cost. RFH was the recommended firm by the scoring committee. So, any questions?
How many years have we used them? That's been my concern of how many years
Yeah.
we've used the same. I asked that back before when I was on council.
No, there are 2 different schools of thought. It's typically, it's not necessarily recommended to change auditors. I will say that we will have a new lead auditor, just if nothing else, by default of the current lead auditor is taking on a different role in the firm, so we will have a new lead auditor. But you have 2 kind of schools of thought. You could have a fresh set of eyes come in. It is going to take time for them to learn your financials. That can be why it's more costly coming in the first year. But also because they're not familiar, they could miss things, whereas some who are familiar will notice more quickly if something is out of line because they know. But there is not a general recommendation by, GASB or any other firm that it's necessary to rotate auditors. Sometimes they'll say rotate your lead staff, but of course RFH is a smaller firm based out of Lexington, so they don't have as much staff as, say, a Dean Dorton Ford or somebody like that. But it has been, it's been, as long as I've been here, they have been the auditor.
Yeah, and they were here back
Yeah.
way back too.
Mr. Mickey?
So roughly how many years?
Well, I've been here almost 13, and I'm not sure how long they were here before that.
Okay. Yeah, in the nonprofit world, basically you are changing so that you have fresh eyes and things like that. The other question I was going to ask is, so in the question I asked earlier about any best practice recommendations and things like that, they didn't have any, didn't find anything, which is great. But it concerns me a little bit, how have we seen any best practice recommendations from them in the past? And if so,
There are times, I mean, if they find anything, they'll put it in the management letter or in a note, but generally they are looking at, as they said, whether or not your financial statements fairly represent your financial position. So if they see an internal control issue where, you know, you've got the same person, you know, writing checks or depositing bank statements, et cetera, they'll make recommendations on that, and they'll have like a finding or a comment that we have to respond to. But as far as like an overall, like looking at your processes, that's not typically what a financial auditor does.
But there's an evolving best practice that goes on where they see, you know, I've had firms where they see best practices and they share that information, so everybody improves or thinks about things in different ways and those kinds of things. And I guess that's one of the things that I have some concern about, having such a long history with one firm, limited number of staff to be able to rotate, and, you know, I think it is beneficial just for transparency, you know, if perhaps we'd look at.
So for the future you're talking about?
Well, I mean, we haven't awarded the contract yet, have
Right.
we? So,
Because they're in for 3 years.
yeah.
3 years. We've used them for a really long time because back in 2000, we had a finance director, not you, of course, but we had a finance director that hid a lot of things from the council. And we, at the council at the time, was very upset that the auditors, we really blame the auditors, and part of that they did not catch that. And we had used the same auditor for a couple of years at that time, or several years. So they were getting comfortable with the finance person.
Yeah.
And so things slipped through that the auditors never caught that were being kept from the council, which ended up being financial hardship to the city. But then at that time, someone else owned this company, and he may be gone then. He was called in to change and start the audit, I think. And then we kept him for a couple of years, and then we rotated to somebody else. And I know for you, because when we rotated to somebody else, I was married at the time, it puts a bigger hardship on your department when you do that, but I know you'll do what you need to do. And then we rotated back to this company, and pretty much we've been with them for 20 years, probably, almost 20 years or close to it. So we've been with them a long time. So I'm with Kim. They've done a good job. They have caught things before that's best practices of some things that they've offered to us. So it's not like they've never said those things, but it is a little concerning to me to keep the same one for such a long time. But
Stacy, did they change the audit manager for this year?
Yes, so like I said, Anna has been, and I know Ashton presented today, but Ashton will probably be the manager or lead. Anna has been the lead in the past probably 5 years.
So you get different eyes on it
Yeah.
every 2 to 3 years.
And we do typically bid this out with GMWSS. We have, so that we have the same auditor, because GMWSS performs their audit first, and then once their report's completed, it rolls up into ours. I know they brought their contract for approval at the last meeting, but,
and they have they're using the same auditor.
yes.
That's what you're recommending tonight.
We bid it out together because makes the most sense, because they're gonna have to combine our financial statements.
Well, people that don't understand how our audit works with the water company can look at our audit and not understand it, because it looks like there's far more there than what is there, because they're kind of jointly, since we own the municipality, but.
Any other questions?
And I might add too, that these firms have to go through peer review.
Yes.
So they're reviewed on their audits. And let me tell you something, an audit will not pick up everything. I mean, my personal experience, we used the same auditor for 20 years, where I used my previous employer. We would change managers every 3 to 5 years. And there was an instance where, you know, it wasn't them, it was myself that picked up fraud. I found it myself. And, you know, audit is not designed to pick up on every little thing. Sure.
So do you feel comfortable if
I
changing?
feel very comfortable, because if you bring it, you know, it's not to say you can't bring in another firm, which at some point you may want to, but, you know, Doing it will be costly. It will probably double your cost because they have to come in and they have to start over. I mean, they have to get familiar with your accounting systems, with, with Stacy and her staff, the mayor and his staff. It's just not as easy as bringing someone in and say, here, this is what the previous audit showed. No, they can't go by that. They have to start from ground zero and go up.
And I just want to make a comment myself, is that, I feel very confident and I feel at ease knowing that somebody knows us, and be able to know that something don't look right because you've never done this before. They know what we do, what Stacy does, and then how we interact. So I feel that this is probably the best way for us to go with this. Because now, as Greg said, getting somebody in new, like I said, you got to start from scratch, and your money of cost in doing that will be a little bit higher. But that's just my 2 cents with that. So, any other? Yes.
So, not asking you to disclose financials and all that kind of stuff, but in the evaluation of the firms, were there significant differences between the bids?
Between the firm qualifications and staff qualifications, no. Between the cost, it was nearly double.
All right. Do we have any more questions? All right, once again, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to get out front, so I need a motion. Motion made by Mr. Stone. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Ms. Mitchell. Do, any more questions and/or comments? All right, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Mayor, I'm a nay. Can I explain my vote?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I'm providing a no vote solely because I think we do need to change. I recognize that there is a cost increase, but I think for transparency, and not to say that there's anything wrong with this firm, I think it's just a best practice. So that's my reason for no.
Thank you, Mr. Mickey, for explaining your vote. So let the record reflect that the motion passed 7-1. Thank you again. Let's move on item C, which is the municipal order for lane runs, business park streetlights.
Yes. We had a request for additional streetlights in Lanes Run Business Park phases 1 and 2. Phase 1 with 2 streetlights, phase 2, 15 streetlights. This has been, I believe, reviewed and approved by the Business Park Authority, that this should come out of the phase 2 funds for the 15 lights, and then of course the city has funds to cover the phase 1 lights. So the phase 2 land sale proceeds will be used to pay for the installation of these streetlights, as it's considered infrastructure as part of Lanes Run Business Park.
All right. All right. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Hambrick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Mr. Minky. Are there further questions and/or comments?
One quick question.
Yes, sir.
Total agreement that we need street lights out there, obviously. My only question is, I noticed that the second entrance off Cynthiana Pike, it's designating two street lights, one on each side of the road, and all the other entrances, everything is on one side of the road. Why we're doing that?
I'd have to.
Eddie, come on up, please. Eddie. Don't sit back in the back row. Come on. Get on up here. I hear you.
Yeah, I noticed that too on the map, and that was given to us by Jack Connor, and he, that's what he requested, and we just took that and, did what he asked us to do, so.
Seems duplicative. Seems duplicative in cost savings.
Okay.
I'll bring it to his attention, he can take a look
All
at
right,
it, another look
thanks.
at it.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Item D, Resolution Business Park Expansion Fund Withdrawal, Scott County Fiscal Court.
The city and county have an interlocal agreement governing the Phase 2 expansion project. They jointly funded the project. We jointly share in the land proceeds. So I keep track of all land sales in the business park, separated out by phase. So there is a balance of Phase 2 land sales. And with Phase 3, we have a sewer privilege agreement, which the council has already approved paying for ours. And the county, as part of that interlocal agreement, has the ability to request to draw down their Phase 2 land sales for whatever expenses they may be. It says general fund expenses, but since the interlocal governs specifically Phase 2, and this is a Phase 3 expense, they are requesting to draw down a portion of their land sales to pay for their half of the privilege fee. So that's, hopefully I explained that as well as I could, but currently there's about $387,000 in Phase 2 land sales, so about $193,000 and change each. So for their half, which is $72,436.43, they are requesting to deduct that from their land sale balance. And the county also approved a resolution to that effect. So you're approving it after the county.
Thank you. Are there a motion? Motion made by Mr. Hampton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Ms. Leslie Mitchell. Are there further questions and/or comments? Yes, sir.
So just quickly, how are we paying our half?
Our half, we have about $800,000 left out of Phase 1 sales, so we will use some of our Phase 1 money to pay our half.
Thank you.
All right. So now we can pay our bill with that. So are there any more questions? All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Let the record reflect that it passed. Item number 15, and I will ask Chief Thompson to come on up for the municipal order for the fire department uniforms. And Chief?
Yes, sir. Mayor, council, first I just want to thank you all for approving that budget. I know for our department it meant a lot, so thank you for that. As far as this, we did a competitive bid process for our uniforms. We would like to move forward with public safety store for our uniforms, so just ask for your approval.
All right. You've heard the request. You'll have a motion.
Motion.
All right. Okay. That's new down on that end. Okay. So Mr. Crisp has made a motion, and Ms. Sames has seconded the motion. Are there any questions and/or comments of this? All those in favor of the motion for the municipal order for fire department uniforms signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Thank you. Item 16, Chief Allgood or somebody representing them. This is a resolution, Kentucky Attorney General Body Armor Grant. So, okay, Ms. Karen, gonna come and talk about that.
Yes, so the General Assembly allocated some restricted funds to the Attorney General's office for body armor, for which the police department submitted applications for, and so they have been approved for, what are the numbers? For $129,129.70 worth of equipment and body armor. No money's actually passing through the city. The Attorney General's office will purchase this equipment on behalf of the city and then sign it over to the police department as to become part of their permanent asset.
All righty.
That's easy. I'll make a motion.
Y'all too quick for me tonight, I'll tell you that. All right, motion made by Ms. Mitchell, second by Ms. Brent. Are there further questions and/or comments? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Mayor, I had two also, it's for helmets.
For helmets?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So we'll have helmets and plates to go on our body.
Well, that's good to know.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll make sure you're well protected.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, council discussion, old business, backyard chickens. This has been on there again. Of course, we talked about this, I think, before. You were presented. I think Emily sent you all presented, gave you a couple of options. And we sent you feedback that was taken from stakeholders from the different agencies. And so, Councilwoman Mitchell, in her original form, gave us something to look at. And then Mr. Stone wanted to actually make something that shows the amendment to that to allow purposes for educational for this. So you have those two under you, and I know that Mr. Menke is you have something else you want to?
No, go ahead.
Oh, you're good. Okay. All right. So, but anyway, so that's where we are. And I know I can look down at you right now. You want to say something. You just dying to bit to say something. So I'm gonna let you say something. Go.
I had to write it down, so I made sure I covered everything. We've been talking about this for a while, so, and everybody's had a chance to look at the information that was shared concerning urban backyard chickens. And thank you to the mayor's team for getting all the information together and sending it out and giving us the time to look at that. And what I would like to do, based on reading all of the information that was sent to us, I'd like to recommend that we go on and move forward with the first reading of the ordinance at the next meeting. I think we have enough information, we've had enough input, and there's a draft ordinance that was included in the information that we received. And it is very similar to the information that I gave you at the beginning, but it does include the council members' recommendations as well. Todd made a couple, and I talked with Karen, I talked with you before I put that out to start with. And so it does include those. And what I want to do, if it's all right with everybody, is the way it looks, it's a draft that you received. It's structured the way they're generally structured. And I would like to add a couple of items to the draft based on some of the stakeholders' recommendations. And these are the following recommendations I'd like to add. They suggested that we clarify that this would only include single-family detached home owner occupied with the permission of the owner if it's a rental. That was planning and zoning that recommended that. It was also suggested that the language around the placement of the coop be based on the property line distance rather than the neighboring structures, so that code enforcement didn't have to go into somebody else's yard to measure. And and that makes sense. And finally, the extension office asked that we tweak the feed storage language to make sure that it said that it should be kept in an enclosed indoor facility. So based on all that, I would like to make those changes to the draft that you have. And I want to say this too, that if we pass this ordinance, there are things that we may learn as we implement it, and it may require that as we go through this, just like anything else, we may need to come back and tweak and make an amendment here or there. But the way I feel about it is that we've spent a lot of time talking about this, and I think we have as much information as we can possibly have. And so let's vote it up or down. That's the way I look at it. Originally, the group that came before us asked, how do you go about changing a law? And I committed to helping them go about that. I didn't commit to this will pass or won't, but helping them through the process. And I feel like we've gotten enough information that we should be able to bring it forward and vote it up or down, and then move on to the next thing. So
I have a question. So with your amendments or added to the draft, did this also include what Councilman
Yes.
Stone's recommendation.
If it, about the schools being exempt?
Well, that's what I was gonna bring up, is to, if this gets voted, I want the ag education ordinance to come up as a completely separate
Okay, thank you.
ordinance. That way, if this gets voted down, we could vote on.
I got it.
And give schools that opportunity
Okay.
to
I
do
got it.
that.
All right, thank you. All right, so, yes, sir.
So just a question. Tammy, thank you for doing all that
You're welcome.
and making that recommendation. The one thing that I didn't see in there is how do we address the vet issue or the health of the chickens in the activity? Because it sounded like we don't have veterinarian services readily available at this time. And the second part of that question is, so how do we treat this? You know, is it more like a pet, like you have a dog or a cat and they have a license or some type of certification that they're disease-free? Or, you know, how do we handle that?
I would say, in no ordinance that I saw from any surrounding city or county, anywhere that we looked at, did it address the veterinarian issue. Also, we currently have chickens in the county, and, you know, however they get their chicken serviced, I would hope that, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's not something, I don't feel like it's our job as a council to say that a chicken is a pet or a
Right.
project or to name it, and you know, I feel like that's not our job here.
Yeah. But it's all about public health. That's the whole point.
Right.
And so being in a closer environment than a farm, you know, how are we addressing that? Because that is part of our role, right? Public safety and health. And I didn't see that reflected in there in any of the conversations with the health department or the vet. So that's the only
Yeah.
question I have.
And I do know that the health department, I saw the comments too, that the health department made, and they didn't make a recommendation. So, you know, they don't make a recommendation about what you do with your dogs or your cats. I mean, we're putting limits on the number. We're putting limits on the environment that they're kept in. We're putting limits on the feed. We're making, this is so stringent as to weed out bad actors who think, I'm just gonna go get some chickens and put them in the backyard.
Sure.
There's a lot of hoops that have to be jumped through, and that's intentional, because it needs to be for people who are serious about it and want to do it right. And I feel like we've gotten to that point, and the people that came to talk were very serious about doing it and doing it right. And so we owe them, let's vote it up or down and move on, and that's where I am with it. We could talk it to death, we could tweak it to death, but I feel like we have enough input, we've had enough time to look at it ourselves, ask whatever questions, make whatever changes, and it's time to just vote for it, one way or the other, and move on. So,
All right.
So, Mayor?
Yep.
One other slightly different but same topic. So I agree with Todd in terms of having his proposed ordinance as separate, you know, so that regardless of how it comes out,
Right.
we're taking care of what needs to be done from an education perspective. I would like to take a look at possibly expanding the education component of that, the way it's specifically drafted now. You know, there are some partnerships in the community right now that could lead to a need that is providing a public purpose for education in ag, but could get caught up in, you know, from a livestock perspective, but could get caught up in this prohibition. So if there truly is a public purpose for education with one of our nonprofits in town that could potentially utilize that same exemption, so.
And
Let me
Mayor,
include that.
question to you, are you comfortable with the enforcement, that you're going to be able to enforce it?
Well, you know, to be honest, I mean, I can't tell you, I don't know. I really don't know where we are with that.
So what happens if you can't enforce it? Then
Well,
what
I
do we
mean,
do?
I know, that's something I'm gonna have to just have more talk with and find out with. I mean, I'm not gonna tell you that, yeah, we can do that, and I end up telling you that, and all of a sudden, we can't do it. So I'm gonna reserve the right, and I'll have to get back with you all, give me some time to look through this and go from there. That's my
Well-
understanding. I get it, but that's where I'm coming from with that. So-
Yeah, well, that's the only thing as far as, I
Right.
don't care about the ordinance, I'm fine, I'm supportive of it, except for if there's no enforcement and my neighbor has chickens and they're on my property all the time, and you can't, and come, a code enforcement or whoever, animal control, whoever, can't come and enforce the ordinance, then we have made quite a few people unhappy.
But I would say that, you know, if this passes, we're gonna make our effort to enforce it the best we can. And that's like,
I don't like that, I don't like that.
well, I mean, on the other hand.
Just, I mean, you're being
Well,
honest.
I mean,
Yes.
same thing with, and this is probably off topic, and I might get my hand slapped for this. The same thing with firecrackers. We have an ordinance in place. But to do that, it's tough to do. It is tough to do. And so, but, I mean, but it, just because it's there, doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to do it, all right? So we're gonna do our best effort we can to do what we can. So, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh,
You
I'll be
go.
real quick. Councilmember Minke at a previous meeting had a really great question about why was this overturned in the first place? Because I think up until 2017 or thereabouts, backyard chickens were legal, and then the ordinance was overturned. That was only 8 years ago. Was anybody here in local government at that time and recall?
Wasn't
there an
me, so I
incident?
can't help you on that, so.
Okay.
It went in with the pigs. It was the pig situation that people were having pigs that were turning into, potbelly pigs that were turning into sows. And
It's
then they-
always the pigs, isn't it?
It's always the pigs.
Always the pigs.
And so they were leaving them outside and then not taking care of them, and then the household pet became the outdoor pig. And so then and then the neighbors started complaining about that kind of stuff, which I see this happening with this. And so basically that ended up doing away with it. Well, the sad part of that, you had some responsible owners taking care of their pig and keeping them in the house or whatever they were supposed to do with them. And then it went, no, nobody could have pigs, we're done with this, and out it went. And so that included all, is how that happened. So that's what and then if we say, okay, people are abusing it, like that happened, and the mayor's not able to enforce it, then we're gonna go back and we're going to end up saying, okay, well, we're just gonna get rid of the ordinance, and then the people that have been responsible, then they're gonna have to get rid of their investment.
Let me correction that. I didn't say I cannot enforce it. I'm just saying that it will be hard maybe, but I'm gonna look into it and see what we can do. But I'm gonna make our effort to enforce it, okay?
And if I may, I would be very careful about making our inability to enforce a law that we pass a reason for not voting for it. I don't, that, to me, if this body passes an ordinance, there may be details to work out, but we ought to be able to enforce it. And if we weren't able to, I would say we would have already said that by now.
Yeah.
By the time it got this far. Yeah, there's things that are still being worked out, and there will be along the way. But I don't know how that will go over with a group of people who came in to see how the law worked, to say, well, we're going to go through all the steps, but in the end, it can't be enforced, so we're not going to pass it. That's not going to go over well. And I didn't hear the mayor say he couldn't. I heard him say there's things to work out. So.
All right, okay, let's go.
If the problem that I see, some are gonna say, well, animal control should handle this. Well, we have a hard time getting animal control to handle a lot of problems with animals inside the city limits now. There are a limited number of them, nothing wrong with them, but we only have a certain number to take care of the city and a certain number to take care of the county. So, you know, if it falls to them, you know, we're gonna fall short. Then it may go to code enforcement. Again, they're taking care of the whole county. So, you know, can it be done? Yes, it can be done, but it's going to be, I don't envy your spot. It's gonna be a chore to ensure it being done. But the thing that scares me the most is that people are going to do this, then when the chickens stop producing eggs, I'm done, open the door and let them go. And then they're roaming around the streets. And that's a problem that I see potentially. You know, just my thought.
Right. Anybody else got one more say about chickens? I said this is something which is.
I don't want anything else, sorry.
I'm giving that teacher look down here, so go ahead.
I got it. No,
You good?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for conversation here. Like I said, you've been, you know, what has been asked of us to actually come up and look at that draft ordinance and have it ready to be voted upon or first reading on the July the 13th meeting. So that is the request of you. Is everybody in agreement with that? That's something that we want to do? Okay. So I guess what we'll do is I'll put this on our to-do list and we'll get staff to look at these particular changes. Is there anything else I need staff that we need of you? Just make sure that put this on the assignment sheet. Okay. Thank you. All right. As for next is the developmental fee, impact fee. A lot of things has been going on. Of course, you know, we've had a stakeholders meeting and got some really good feedback from that. From that, you know, one thing is that we have a web page which is live now. And if you look under the city council where it says proposed developmental impact fee on our webpage, it will kind of give you some brief description of the concept. And it also gives you a link where it will give you for information, such as it gives you information as to the written feedback, and also some presentation material, and also some information from the consultant. And also some, if you want to ask some questions, you can also type that in at that particular time. The draft is still the ordinance still being in process of being worked on through outside legal counsel. They still need to have a couple of meetings with some more relevant departments, as well as also with the consultant. They want to have a meeting with them, and as well as that. So the intent is behind these meetings is to understand the facts that will lead to an identical capital needs and understand the content of the report that was given by the consultant. And from that, we're still going to have an additional stakeholder meeting with them. And also, we're going to be able to parallel that meeting where the consultant will be here live in person at that next meeting, so we can also talk with them on that and get questions. So once these steps has been completed, the ordinance will gradually be circulated to staff and council, stakeholders, and additional stakeholders. Feedback will be gathered, and then from there, if and when a final draft is ready, a council member or council person may want to sponsor this. All right, have I made that clear as much to you all?
Mayor,
Yeah.
question. So one of the pieces of the puzzle I think that's missing out of this is looking at what are the current costs or fees that developers are paying today.
Okay.
Because of, you know, all the tap-on fees and the privilege fees and all those things. You've got the roads and the sewers and all that are put in at cost of the developer and then turned over to the community. So just to be able to help show what are all the costs that are currently doing, and then the city benefits from, or the utility, and then now we're talking about, okay, these, again, it's a step-by-step process, right? So being able to have a fair understanding of the current condition and where we need to go next.
That would be, I would say would be part of it, when you get that feedback, that would probably be part of that feedback, I guess we can get, getting that current information. Mr. Hampton?
Yes, Mayor, would it be beneficial, I don't know if it'd be before or after a draft of the ordinance, that we have a workshop, council workshop? I believe that would be a good idea to have that with the stakeholders there, and include the public as much as we can. Because it's going to be extremely important that everyone understands it and we get buy-in.
Okay. All right, great, okay, thank you. Any other suggestions? All right, so again, I just want to give you an update where we are with that, and like I said, it's a work in progress. We're going to continue that. We kind of gave you an outline where we are, a map where we are, and where we're heading with this, and from there, taking the feedback that Councilman Minkey gave me, and also Councilman Hamilton gave, to look those, to try to incorporate that in, and also possibly putting a work session in place for this, prior to that. Okay. Next, if no other questions on chickens and/or development impact fees, Senate Bill 63, and you had Mr. Smith here earlier today. He was talking about what it is, and you all, the law, I think, is still being looked at and so on. So, is anything that you all have any questions, or you want any discussion furthermore with that?
I guess what are our options? The way I see it, we have two options. We can do nothing, or we can create an ordinance ourselves.
That's correct. We can create
those two options.
Yeah, to allow it to be in the city. I'm sorry.
Which on the, thank you, Mayor, for having the staff send out the KLC along with the Senate bill. On that, if the county, of course, it's in question what the county's going to do or not do. So if the county does pass it, it's going to be put a lot of pressure on us to pass it. I know there's a few, I don't know how everybody feels about it, but I know there's a few that's pro and a few that's con on it for issues, enforcement issues there again. Same thing we talked about earlier. It's always about enforcement issues. But on that, if they do it, we're going to be a little bit harder press that we will do it if they end up doing it. Because it's going to be awful hard for somebody to drive and all of a sudden the county line runs out and they don't even realize it. Because I bet half the people don't know where the city limit stop begins and stops around here. But I know the mayor doesn't want me to do this, but there is a couple of questions I'd like to ask Mr. Smith and get just a real quick general clarification on a couple of things from him since he is here.
All right.
Mr. Smith, just real quick, you made mention, which I didn't realize this, that we're in kind of a mega here with, you said West Virginia,
Yep.
Tennessee, and Kentucky?
Correct.
For the sales. So percentage of business that comes to you, how much of it comes out of state versus in state?
We get a lot out of state, but I think it is a much bigger thing locally than you probably realize.
Okay, well, that was going to be my next question to you. What are your, I was getting ready to say constituents, what are your customers telling you? What are they relaying back to you? Because I'm sure they all know about this.
They do, and it's been a big deal, so there's been a lot of conversation. We were involved a little bit in the actual original legislation, a group of my peers.
Okay.
It's popular. All of our border states have already done this, with the exception of Virginia and Missouri.
Okay.
So Ohio, Indiana, Tennessee, West Virginia, everybody else is already there. So it's gotten very popular, and sort of where it began was, we have a lot of area in the state and surrounding states to ride these machines. And so people would arrive at a park, and then they would have to figure out, how do I get the 3 miles up the road to the trailhead? So it kind of started there, and then it just became popular, and it was a revenue generator. So that's kind of how it got started. These things aren't like horses. They're not like, you drive someone's house, drive past, you don't realize that there may be 3 of these in their garage because they're not stored outside. I do think it's a bigger deal than folks probably think. To give you an idea, and again, this is not about us, but we're a $30 million company. We're one of the bigger businesses in the county, and that's about the size of a Walmart, for example. And that's really driven by this particular product, right? Because it has become such a big deal in the last 15 years or so. So, yeah, I do think there's a lot of folks that are engaged. I've had folks texting me, actually, we're sitting here tonight, that didn't even know this was going on. And we were not telling people go bombard the city council or anything, but I do think there's a lot of folks interested. And I do think it creates a little bit of a quandary in that Rebecca and her folks in the clerk's office, they've been gearing up for this for a while. Again, they have to start doing it regardless. So there's already confusion. We have people all the time because there's some requirements to upgrade their machine. So they need to add turn signals, or they need to add brake lights or whatever. We do those services already. We do a lot of that, for Indiana residents or Ohio residents or whatever. But we have folks kind of bombarding us in preparation for this that think, starting Friday they can do it. And so we're telling them, hey, pump the brakes. You don't have that locally just yet. But I think that's going to come up more than maybe folks foresee.
Do you know if there's other counties in Kentucky that have passed it or cities?
Yeah, there's several that already have, and there's several like us that are thinking about it in process, in a first reading, whatever. Okay. The first county, I think, was Jackson County, and I actually have their amendment. I shared it with this county as well. So there's sample legislation that the state has already issued, and now there's already, other counties and cities that are adopting.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, and just for, if the county does, everybody's kind of quiet on it at the moment, but if the county does it, I feel like we'll be forced to do it.
All right, question?
Can I just add one thing? So technically you have a third option, which is you could adopt more stringent local laws governing the vehicle safety equipment operation than what the statute sets out.
Okay.
So it's not just yes or no, you have the option to make it more.
Yeah, I noticed that in the back of this, it even made the comment, it's the KLC document that even said you can limit certain highways, you limit them on speed limits, requiring them to have helmets to be worn. I don't know why we do helmets since we don't do motorcycles with helmets, but yeah, it can make it quite a bit more restrictive with it. So,
Thank you,
all right.
Em.
Thank you, Mayor, very much.
Thank you, Emily, for bringing it to our attention that we can have another third option with that. So if I understand the option 1 is that we do nothing, leave like we is. Option 2 is to opt in to allow it. Option 3 is to allow it, but with some stringent requirements. Helmets, boxing gloves, helmets and everything else you need with it. Okay?
Mayor, if I could.
Yes.
It's no secret I'm against this. And the reason I'm against it is, how often do you see on 27, 18 News, 56 News, Lexington Herald Leader, whatever, young kid dies on ATV. Okay? Parents nowhere near around. ATV accident kills somebody. Okay? These vehicles are not designed for the highway. They may be similar to a motorcycle, but they're not designed for the highway. So why are we putting them on the highway? Why are we putting them on city streets? I'm still not a fan and still against the golf carts roaming Georgetown. I think it's a bad idea. But I was outvoted, so, it's an accident waiting to happen. It's a fatality waiting to happen, and I don't think we need to play into this.
All righty. Okay. Any other discussion? All right, I appreciate the feedback of everybody. So now it is time for you to actually be able to have council comments. And Todd, since you was on a roll with that, I'm gonna start with you first.
You skipped new business.
Oh, I did. Wait a minute, I got scared. Oh, why am I? Thank you, Emily. Getting so excited. Want to get, Hey, new business. Anybody got something new you want to bring up? All righty.
So I don't know if it's new business or a
Okay.
request from council comment, so I'll do it here and you can put it wherever you want. A couple of weeks ago, I was at KLC Summer Summit, and one of the 3 days was focused on code enforcement. And so that was very enlightening. Lots of great best practices out there and things like that. There's been lots and lots of conversation across the board on the different things that we expect them to do. Being new to the council, I don't know really what the current condition is. I know that they're out there, they're doing a lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff, and we're adding people, which, because there's a need. So can we get a presentation on, primarily for education, more than anything, of the general public and the council, of this is the role, this is the activity, here's the top 10 issues that we have, and maybe some data around that. To Todd's point earlier, it's not just Georgetown, it's the entire county. And so, how does that break down? So, just giving some basic understanding of what our guys are up against and what we can do to help them from an education perspective, as well as being able to look at, are there things we need to tweak to make things better, and not just put more on their plate, and without the recognition of what that really means.
Well, since you're on a roll and still going at it, I'm gonna let you go and have the rest of your comments. You got anything else you wanna say?
I'm done tonight.
Okay, all right. All right, so now it's time to start that way. This same. This is the privilege I get, I get to pick which way we go, like teacher in the classroom. I get to pick the students that go. So Ms. Sams, if you got something you want to say?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I always do. All right, I have 3 things, actually. One, where's the update on the fire burning at Ward Hall for the day?
Okay, go ahead. She's gonna go ahead and get that.
So our last fire committee meeting had to be canceled for attendance issues, so that is on the agenda for Thursday for discussion. So I would expect that would be part of the fire committee's report to you at the next council meeting.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Perfect. Then I will let them know, because they contacted me. And then the sign on the corner of Paris Pike and the bypass, what are we doing with that?
Parish Pike and.
The Georgetown, that was.
We are working on that. Matter of fact, we're looking at probably getting a design phase. As part of that money in my budget, I put in for those signage. That will be the first thing we're gonna look at, because I think that's the one that really is the one that captures.
It is.
It is that. So, we're gonna prioritize that, and we made that our number one
Okay.
place to start.
And then you're gonna bring the design back to the council
Yeah, once we get all that,
approval?
we're gonna try to do that. Yes,
Okay,
we are.
Perfect.
Yep.
And then the third thing is the area that's beside the railroad trestles as you're coming into town, that area, actually, the city kind of put those up there with limited budget area, but it really needs to be cleaned out. It's overgrown and it looks kind of nasty these days, but actually the city kind of is supposed to take care of that.
Okay.
It's right behind that city sign as you come in there. We're right beside the railroad track.
Is that on 460? You're talking about right before, right across from?
Southern States.
Southern States, kind of hidden back in there.
Yeah, it's right where you can see where
There's two on both sides. There's one on this side and there's another on the other side. Yeah.
Southern States has one on their side that they
Right.
take care of with wildflowers, and
Okay.
then we had put in some
Okay.
flowers on the other side, but it's all overgrown and looking kind of shabby.
I will get hold of that and assign some staff to take care of that.
And that's it?
Thank you, Ms. Sames. Okay, next.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you're next.
Great. Well, I wanted to thank our first responders. Over the last couple of weeks, there's been some incidents. I believe a shooting incident over by Tan Bark, and then last night our oldest grocery store had a wreck that was pretty significant. And the thing is about the wreck at Save-A-Lot, that puts the employees out of work for a while too. I'd like everybody to kind of think about them as they rebuild and get that going. I believe they were the original Kroger here in town, maybe back in the 50s or 60s. So that was, it was hard to see that, but thank you for everything that you do. We really appreciate it. And then second, on another note, I believe over the weekend we had the first entertainment at the Pavilion. And even though it was pretty warm, there were a lot of positive comments from the people that attended the band show. And they love the fact that we have an area specifically designed for events, and it was just a huge hit. So hopefully the temperatures will cooperate from here on out, but as we explore other different venues here in town, what a way to really get that season going. So
And I would suggest if you're gonna go to that event, bring your little portable little fans and kind of keep yourself cool. All righty, okay.
Yeah, I appreciate the deliberative aspect of these council meetings. I think we're bringing each other new insights and enriching the conversations, and it seems like it can't be anything but positive to dig in more deeply about these things. And I think we have a great budget that we've passed. Doesn't have everything everybody wanted, but it's solid, and I appreciate the Finance Committee and Stacy and everybody working on it, and the good audit report, so thank you.
Well, I want to echo that, our staff really worked hard on that, and so Stacy, Devin, Emily, all the rest of y'all, our fire, police, and all our departments, it takes a lot to put something together where, not everybody's gonna like what you put in there, and there's some people feel like they got left out, but again, at the end of the day, you gotta do what you think is best in your heart of heart for people. And as long as we think we're putting people first in every decision every day, I'm good with that. I can live with that every day. So, Ms. Brett.
I have nothing, sir.
All right. Okay, here you go. He's spoken, but Mr. Hammond.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. First of all, again, on the audit for last year, Stacy, congratulations. It's really good. Always did a clean audit opinion. Budget, as far as, the mayor, his staff, and Stacy, that, as the mayor, that's a lot of hard work. There's a lot that goes into that, and you have to seek everyone's opinion on it. If not, you're not going to get buy-in for it. So that's always important. Lastly, on Michael's comment about the pavilion down here, my wife and I went Saturday night. It was hot, but just to bring up something else. Saturday night was the first use of the new stage that tourism had, and it was really, really nice. So if you can, get out and see it. It's actually a trailer that opens up, and they can extend a stage out from it, and it was really set nice, and everyone was covered under the pavilion. So it's a nice venue to have, and there was a lot of really good comments about it as well.
Good. Perfect. Ms. Mitchell.
All good.
I'm getting scared now. Last but not least.
You had me ready to roll, and then you just.
I just want to keep you on pause. Maybe you will forget something that you want to say.
I forgot everything I was going to say. I don't have anything.
Again, thank you, council. If no one be brought to this committee and council, this is adjourned.